Good evening, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are. It's Meet Me for Coffee, a special edition of this show featuring a band called Wheatus that I truthfully love. We got the lead singer, Brendan, here. How's it going, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Do you drink coffee?
I do. I drink lots of coffee. We have a little espresso machine. I go like full espresso grind and strong as I can. Usually have like two small cups of like a double espresso in the morning before I get moving.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, yeah, like you got to have energy for your day, right? And I feel like espresso like just injects it right into your veins. It's probably a good spot to say that I'm coming out with my own coffee line very soon, and hopefully everyone hears this. I would definitely send you a bag. Um,
Sweet.
it's been quite the last couple of years for your band. We were talking about this before we punched the recording button, but I want to actually get down to business here and talk about the 20th anniversary of the Wheatus, the first record. You guys are re-recording that. Uh,
Yeah. So the plan was to re-record the whole thing, 10 original songs plus another 10 additional 10 for a total of 20. The 10 extras were kind of from like an alternate universe version of our first record that, songs from over the years that we didn't do because they sounded like they belonged on album one. Well, now all these years later, we have all these like this shelf full of old songs that were sort of in the image of that first record. So we put those down on tape finally. We're done recording everything. We're in the mixing process. And it's just taken so long with COVID, just pain in the ass. Like the guy has to like basically live here for a little while. And, our studio is in our home. It's all kind of self-contained. So it obviously took a lot longer, but the original intention was 20 songs, in 2020 on the 20th anniversary. We thought we had a great idea.
it
And
is a great idea.
yeah, well, COVID-19 had another idea. So, we dealt with that. But yeah, like I said, we got 8 songs finished at the moment. They're all out on Spotify. Half of them are re-records from the album, and half of them are the sort of lost songs, alternate universe series. And we're doing them in these pairs. So Teenage Dirtbag comes out with a song called Mope, and Hump 'em and Dump 'em comes out with a song called FBSM. So we're doing this sort of like partners, like matter and antimatter particle thing. And once we finish with that, we're going to do the full 20 on a vinyl reissue, CD reissue, everything. So
Super. And the best thing about all this is that you guys will own all the masters, or you do own all the masters and have complete control over what's going on with your music. How good does that feel?
it feels pretty good considering that the first original masters are lost, it seems. We were never licensed for anything that would have required the multi-tracks, which was suspicious. Over the years, those requests would come up and they would just kind of fizzle out. And it was always, we weren't in control of the master. The record label was. And I realized that, even back in the day, I sent them 5 sets of master tapes that needed to be, archived and transferred into future-proof media and whatever came next, But I don't think that was ever done, and I believe that those old transitional tapes are probably burnt by now. And it wouldn't surprise me if the masters were actually lost. It seems like they are, We contacted Sony. Rolling Stone contacted Sony a few times to try and see if they could get to the bottom of it, and there was a dead end every time. So
So it was almost like they just like basically just tossed it out or just lost it. Is this
well, I think there was a lot of transitional media back then. Like
okay?
we recorded on these sort of old digital high 8 tapes on before, after analog tape, sort of 91, 92, 93, and before Pro Tools, 2001, 2002, 2003. That little period in between there were all these digital tape machines, right? And this stuff was built like shit because it was transitional, it was like, oh, it's a digital tape deck, whatever. And but it was all that we could afford. It was all you could do it on because you couldn't bring a tape machine into my mother's house. That was just like, out of control. So we recorded on those, and when I handed them over, I said, you gotta make sure these get archived onto tape, physical tape, or Pro Tools, or something else that's coming down the pike. and I don't think it was ever done. So I can assume that they're gone.
Hopefully one day someone finds those.
Yeah. Well, I found the remnants of them. I had the sort of like penultimate set. They were skeletal versions, drums, some guitar, some bass, the click tracks, a few vocals here and there. And from that, we were able to reconstitute them one instrument at a time, replacing everything. So we did have enough to get a sort of viable, true to the original first album cut done again. So
That must have taken quite some time just to transcribe those original records.
I spent so first of all, I did it and started bringing tapes to a guy named Mark at Dream Hire over in Queens. He was like, man, I have a few of these machines. I'm not sure they work. So he pulled them out of the garbage and got them kind of fixed up. And we're transferring into Pro Tools, and some tapes didn't work and some were glitchy, but we just recorded it, with all the defects and everything. And we were able to dump them into Pro Tools for a viable session. That kind of reclaimed, I would say, maybe 60 to, in some cases, 90% of the songs from the first record. They were almost all missing the final vocals, and a lot of them were missing like the tambourine or some guitar solos and stuff. So we kind of built them up again from scratch as best as we could,
And it's so cool because like this year was the year that you guys finally went back on tour too, right?
Well, in America, yeah. Well, so we did tour the States in 2017, 2018 with Mike Doty. We were supporting him. We were kind of playing the Soul Coughing catalog and some of his solo stuff. And then we went to the UK for some touring in 2019, and we did some more Doty touring in 2019, and then we got back here, and the COVID happened. And out of nowhere, this past March, or actually it was more like February, we got a call from Art Alexakis from Everclear. He wanted us to come out and do his Summerland tour, and this kind of blew us away. We were like, what? And then we found out Living Colour was on it and Hoobastank was on it. And we were like, did they really mean us? Like this feeling of like, what, man? And then, we have been on the road for 20 years, just not in the States. So it was like, we had the skills and the equipment and the know-how and everything to do a bigger tour of America, but we just hadn't been invited, and it was a perfect combo for us to just head out there with Everclear and do these dates with those other bands and just people we really look up to and have admired since I was in the case of like Living Colour. Like, I gave up trying to play like Vernon Reid when I was 14, so it's like, it was a big deal. It was like really crazy.
Did he get the nerves going or what?
Oh yeah. But then we, talked to him a couple of times and we realized he's just like really interested and open guy. And he's just super chill and just wants to chat about politics and deep stuff. And he's my kind of people. We had a great time.
I feel that's the kind of person you are, which is great. I saw a video of you. Was it on BBC, like the news channel or something like that?
Probably BBC Politics Live, maybe talking about Brexit.
Yeah, you were talking about it, and then there's a couple comments on YouTube. It's like, yo, is this guy on this show all the time? Because I'll have to start watching it.
Yeah, that was what they had me on there because I was like the resident guest touring musician. And I don't think they realized that I actually have an EU passport, so I had a little bit more insight into like what it was going to mean. And I brought up a couple things like the sovereign border versus the federal border at in Northern Ireland, which is a huge problem. They have no idea how to fix that. And I fully think that the Tories are maybe intending for some violence to just be part of the scheme there. And the other thing was that if you have a trade embargo on UK bands or UK companies that make buses, right? You're not going to be able to get your carnet done properly in time. Let's say you're a UK band and you're gonna, you have a hit in Sweden or something, right? You can't go. you just can't. You can't go and do business unless you get an enormous amount of paperwork done in a very short period of time. It all has to be right. So, you know, and it's your first hit, you really don't know how to do that shit. Lots of people will tell you, well, that's a manager's job, but I know better, man. Like that winds up being your job. Like, so I was kind of saying that on the air in a very sort of practical sense. I don't think they weren't really like down to talk that deep about it. I don't think.
Well, we're talking about Europe and the UK. Where's your favorite spot to hit up when you guys go on tour, or just if you were to go on a vacation right now?
Vacation, Amsterdam. Amsterdam is my favorite, not New York City, because I'm a New York native and I love it here. I'll never leave. But yeah, definitely Amsterdam. It's a wonderful place. I think that the best kind of shows that we have, if we're not talking about vacation, Scotland, in particular Glasgow and Aberdeen. We've had some great shows in Inverness, Carlisle, and Wales. Lots of places in Wales. We used to play a place in Newport, Wales called JB's, and it was just every time it was just kick ass, and it was run down and whatever, but you know, that's where they are waiting for a good show, and the enthusiasm, you know, makes all the difference. So, yeah, lots of places in Ireland. We've had great shows in Dublin, and a couple times we played Galway. We had a great time over there. So yeah, it's definitely the north of England. Definitely where it's at, or rather, I should say Scotland. But yeah. The northern UK.
Well, definitely the cold beer and the good music goes hand in hand, and you guys are one of the big parts of that happening, right? So it's pretty cool thinking about, you know, where you guys came from up to now, and you guys are still going. You know, the publishing part of Teenage Dirtbag, I must have seen that on, is it American Pie? I've seen it on many, I've heard it on many productions and films.
Yeah, it gets around. The movie you're talking about is actually called Loser,
Loser, yeah.
which starred Mina Savari and Jason Biggs and Greg Kinnear, and was oddly a movie that Everclear was actually in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but yeah. And the only regret I have from that time is that I never got to meet Art back then, because he's one of my favorite songwriters from the '90s. So I kind of like, you know, wanted to meet him. But he was going out of a room when I was coming in during one of the 5.1 surround sound mix sessions, so I missed him by a moment. Yeah.
How'd you know that the song was going to be like as big as it was? Like, who picked out that song to promote it?
Well, so that had a lot to do with what we were doing in New York. And I didn't show it to anybody when I first wrote it. I kind of kept it to myself for a long time, and was recording it and re-recording it on a 4-track with a drum machine and a bass, and playing all the parts myself, and just trying to get my head around what kind of a voice I would have when I sang it. You know, experimenting, kind of staying in the laboratory for a little while. So it was about 94, 95, 96, 97. I was kind of still doing that a little bit, and then started experimenting with musicians, rehearsing with other musicians. My brother shortly joined the band, and during that time I had a pretty solid relationship with Phil Jimenez, the co-producer on the first record, and he and I had been in a couple of other bands together, and we really hit it off in the studio. So all that time I was like showing him, like, oh, there's a new one I did, is this better, this guitar sound, whatever we think of this beat, what about this swing, you know? So we were kind of tinkering with it in secret for a while, and then when we started playing shows, we made CDs and we were giving it away, and that was a sort of a little bit ahead of the curve on digital music distribution, because it's funny, I worked at a company in Times Square that built VPNs, virtual private networks, for Wall Street and a couple of other banks, and the two guys who ran that company found out I was in a band, and they were like, yo man, so you got your digital rights all sewn up? What are you doing with that? And I was like, oh, you know, I don't know, man. He's like, well, if it's on a CD, it's software. You know that, right? It's going to be free. There's no way to stop that. It's coming. And so I had this little kind of weird clue about, you know, in 1998, what was going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years. And so I operated on that mentality. When we were giving stuff away, we were kind of trying to make it kind of viral on CD, and it worked. Suddenly there was like people around the corner at our shows. And then LimeWire and all that kind of ate into our sales the first couple of weeks, but it didn't really hurt the song so much. It just was like, it was still popular, but the label couldn't see it. And that worked out to our advantage too, because later on they let us go because of that. But being free in 2004 was a great time to have had a hit and be an independent artist. So it was scary, and sort of no man's land. Nobody knew what was going on, but it worked out for the better. And during that time in the 90s when we were playing shows, I knew that it was a kind of a strong narrative and a good story. And I could see people responding to it. People we didn't know were showing up. It wasn't friends and family anymore. It was like, randoms. And I had been through a few record deal situations, and I toured with Joan Jett and opening up for her, and not Wheatus in another band. And I was cynical on the process. So I kind of knew that it took more than just a good song that people liked. So we were super cautious. And when Columbia Records approached us, they approached us with the idea of, you can produce your own record. And the guy who did that was this guy, Kevin Patrick, who was, he was like really serious about us being self-produced. That was what distinguished him from other label people, because there were other label people milling about, but I would say the same thing to them every time. Well, I don't think we're ready for a record deal yet, maybe next year. And that really kind of made them more like aggressive about it. But Kevin was the one who's like, look, this is really good, and I don't want to touch it. I just want you to be the producer, and we'll just take it to Donnie Einer at Columbia Records. And if he likes it, we'll go. And he did like it. And I said, well, give me one more chance. Give me 50 grand. We'll go into my mom's basement for 3 weeks. And in March of 2000, we re-recorded the whole thing almost. And that's the final version that you're familiar with. So
that's unreal, man. Some pretty cool stories. I want to know the history behind your band name. How'd you guys decide on Wheatus?
I started calling it that before I had a band, before it was just me. And it was something that was like word that my dad used when we were kids. I think it's a devolved, like, sort of version of the word little. And it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of a nonsense word, which is one of the reasons I picked it. I didn't want the word, the name of the band, to mean anything. I wanted it to be meaningless. And it was just, if you take the word little like my dad did, and then you could turn it into baby talk as a parent does, when we were little kids, he would say, Wheatle, 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 Wheatus, Wheatus, Wheatus. And that turned into, nicknames evolving. So that was what he called us when we were kids, my brother and my sister and I.
That's pretty interesting. What are some plans coming up for the band in late 2021, 2022?
Well, we're going to finish this record. There's a movie that is nearly finished. That's about our sort of last 20 years or so of our journey. It's called You Might Die. And there's a couple of kids in the UK who started following us around with a camera in 2010, made it. It came out okay. It's not very flattering toward me, but I didn't want them to make a puff piece or anything, because our touring life can be pretty grim and rigorous, and I'm not always the most pleasant person to be around. So I didn't want to bullshit anybody. So it's all in there. Everything's in there. Yeah, so that's coming, and then we're gonna, like I said, finish the re-record of the 2020 version, which will probably be finished. I'm hoping to be finished with it before Christmas. But Everclear keeps asking us to go to the West Coast and all this stuff, so I'm not gonna turn them down, yeah, we'll do it as fast as we can, and then after that, album 7, for which there are 3 songs right now currently on Spotify that we finished. One of them's called Michelle, that's on our live record. And then there's 2 other singles one's called Lullaby and the other is Tipsy. And they're both out right now. And we're going to finish that record, put another 8 songs or so on that and put it out and just get everything kind of reissued. I think 2025 for us is another goalpost in terms of like quarter century kind of dirtbag thing. It's closer than it sounds. I know that's crazy, but we lost a whole 18 months on COVID. So it's like, it's going to come snapping back around faster than we think. I believe. But yeah, that's it. Those are the plans. Oh, well, we're going to the West Coast, like I said, with Everclear. We're playing New York City tomorrow night with them, a place called Sony Hall, and then after that, we're headed over, flying to the West Coast to do, I think about 10 dates with them over there on the West Coast, and then we're gonna wind it down.
Would it be crazy if Jason Biggs showed up to your concert?
I don't think that wouldn't surprise me too much. I would be delighted, frankly, to see him. He's a funny guy. He's a very serious comedian, if you ask me, or a very not serious comedian. I don't know how you say that properly, but
well, yeah, Brendan, it's definitely a match made in heaven with Everclear and Wheatus, and this is I feel like this is going to go on for quite some time. This partnership, it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, Art's like our bigger brother. He makes fun of us, calls us hippies, you know.
Hey, he's got to call you something, and at least it's a good thing.
I like it, man. I've never had an older brother. It's nice.
Brennan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for dropping by. We'll have to do this again. I'm looking forward to the re-release of the record and seeing you guys out on tour.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me on, man.